Greetings, family and friends. My name is Vaughn Parker, and I am excited to share with you some great news. We've reached a major milestone with our company, and we're about to close one chapter where we get rid of our excess inventory of our first iteration of seasonings. They are swiftly approaching the expiration date, and we want to liquidate our entire inventory. So we're offering them to you at a discount of 70%. Please visit our website at www.caribkfoods.com. Add the items marked for clearance to your cart, and you'll see the discount at checkout. We thank you so much for being a part of our journey. We're about to close one chapter and open a new chapter with a new inventory. We strive to continue to bring you seasonings that have the highest quality, the best ingredients, and the most flavors. Our seasonings are kosher, meaning no impurities. They're all natural. They're low sodium. They're gluten free, and they are GMO free. Overall, you're getting the best quality seasonings available on the market because we use the highest quality ingredients harnessed from the Caribbean to give you that great, robust flavor. Thank you so much for all your support over the years. We're excited about the next chapter. Come join us on our journey. Thank you and have a great day.
Okay. So everyone, thank you for joining in. Waiting for some more people to join in. I'm not sure if everybody can get in. Did everybody here receive the email? Hit one if you received the email. Hit one if you received the email. And just let me confirm with you that that is how you got in, that you got the link. All right, I'm going to share another link with you. This one is for the PDF. This is the follow along PDF. Okay, I see more people coming on in. That's great. All right, there's the link right there. Click the link. Click the link right there. Again, that link is for you can get access to the PDF before we get started. Okay, so everyone got the email. That's great. Let me know the video and audio quality. Hit one if the video and audio quality is on point. Hit one if the video and audio quality is on point. Hit one, confirm. Let me know if you can hear me clearly, if you can see the screen clearly. Okay. Awesome. Also, if y'all can do me a favor, follow me on all social media platforms. So Divine Prospect, Ron Shields on Facebook. You can also find me on Kingdom Moments, at Kingdom Moments on Instagram, Divine Prospect on TikTok, and on YouTube on our community tab. So please go in there and let everybody know that the session has started. I didn't get a chance to do that, but just let everybody know the session has started and to check their emails. So everybody in here that follows me on all social media platforms, please go on those platforms. Divine Prospect, Ron Shields on Facebook, at Kingdom Moments on Instagram, Divine Prospect on TikTok, and Kingdom Harmony Ministries YouTube. Go to the community tab, and any post that you see with this part 2 lecture on it, please let everybody know that the session has started and to check their emails. Okay? Thank you so much. So far, we only got 10 people in here. So we're missing about 80 plus people. So they may have to catch the replay, but I'm about to get started in less than 4 minutes. I'm going to give them 4 minutes to come on in. Please do that for me, y'all, if you don't mind. We're 10 minutes in. We need to get started in another 4 minutes. So I have enough time to finish out part 2 because I'm not doing a part 3. Okay. So we're going to give another couple of minutes. So while we do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to showcase for you a few things. So just give me one moment. while I get set up. Right now, today, this is a one-man studio. One-man studio. All right. All right, so just give me a second. You know what? Let me grab this. Let's do this. All right, all right. We're getting closer to deadline. All right, everyone, let me know if you got the PDF. Hit 1 if you got the PDF. It should be the start comment that says Kingdom Harmony Ministries or Divine Prospect. There's a link there for the PDF. Let me know if you got the PDF. We're gonna get started. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, so what I'm gonna do first is go over with y'all some of the things that we have going on here at KHM. Some of you may be familiar with it, some of you may not, but we'll go ahead and
It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Now make it rock, let's ride, let's ride.
Hip hop kids are in the building.
all right. So right there, we have our Jubilee Manumission program. So hold on, give me 1 second. Okay, so right there we have our Jubilee Manumission program. Pretty much we do debt elimination, credit repair, and financial planning. So if anybody's interested in any of those services, you can email us at jubileemanumission@gmail.com, jubileemanumission@gmail.com. All right. And the last one I'm going to show you, and we had a commercial earlier, so you would catch Caribbean Kitchen, but here's another one. All right. So that one, give me 1 second, I'll send it to you on the chat. Yes, we have commercials. All right. So that one you just saw is for our natural path to Eden. And pretty much what we do with that is our naturopathic health consultation program. So if you have any health ailments, issues, just email us. And that email is naturalpathtoeden@gmail.com. I'll put it in the chat. Let us know if you have any health ailments. Let's say that you are healthy, but you want some assistance in what else you can do to stay healthy or maintain your health. Or if you're concerned about the flu, COVID, anything like that, you can email us and we'll go ahead and set up an appointment to speak with you one-on-one. And then if you're interested and you want us to help you move further, we offer regimen plans. So those consist of dietary, give you a dietary plan, supplements to add to that plan, and some exercises that we couple with that. We also do a check-in with you several times a month. So we check in on your mental health, make sure you're good mentally, emotional health, spiritual health, and then we dive into the physical health part of things. So if you're interested and you want to patronize these services, or let's say you want to be a consultant, right? Because we have paid positions as well, then you want to email us at naturalpathtoeden@gmail.com. All right. Okay, so I'm going to put that in the chat and then we're going to get started. Hopefully everybody else figures out how to get here. Hopefully they got their emails, which I'm hoping they did. Okay, that's our Natural to Eden program. All right, take another sip. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. What we're gonna do first is we're gonna do a quick run through of part one, very quick. Then we're gonna jump into part two. I want to say thanks to everybody for patronizing this event. I truly appreciate it. We sold a lot of tickets. Like I said, close to 100 tickets that we sold for this event for part one and part two combined. I think we did really good with the ticket sales. I see that there's a high demand for me to get back into lecturing and that you value the information that I'm sharing with the community by putting a dollar to it, right? So you're putting your money where your mouth is, and I truly appreciate that investment and that sacrifice. What I would encourage y'all to do is go to our Patreon, www.patreon.com/Divine Prospect, and sign up for one of the tiers there, so that way you can get the official video with this along with the PowerPoint and the PDF, so you have everything you need to actually go back over this session that we're about to do and get everything you need out of it, right? So no detail, nuance will be missed, okay? All right. Let's get rid of this logo over here. That was the issue before. It was in the way. All right, there we go. All right. So everybody said everything's good. So we're about to get started. Again, thank you so much for your patronage and support. Please go to all my social media handles that y'all are part of and let everybody know that the session has started, and for them to check their emails, all right? If they pay for part one, check their emails, and that way they'll have the link so that they can see this part, okay? All right, so going back to the PowerPoint, let's go back here. All right, I'm gonna run through it real quick. We went through the English definitions, right? We talked about dogma by means of Judaism and rabbinic Judaism and its take on what we call the Dinah and Shechem, or Shechem and Dinah affair. Again, they say that it's rape. It was an abusive act. That is their subscription. And most of it comes from Midrash Agadah, which is their commentary on how they're interpreting the passage. Again, it is not a primary source. It is a secondary source. And I'm going to show you, according to the actual Genesis 34 narrative, how we can confirm that that's the case and how we should not put all our eggs in one basket when reading this commentary. Not only do we have commentary on the rabbinic side, which we went over, right? The rabbinic side breaks down to the issue that happened, or the situation that happened with Dinah, as a means of punishment for Jacob, as a means for punishment for Leah, as a means for Shechem's guilt, and for Dinah's responsibility. So on that side of things, that is what they cast onto why that issue happened in regards to Dinah, right, at the hands of Shechem. Now, if we go to the other side of things, some of y'all who don't like the rabbinic stuff, you'll like the Dead Sea Scroll stuff. On the Dead Sea Scroll stuff, they had the same thing. They had Midrash Agadah. And we went over this. So when you read Jubilees, chapter 30, and you read Jasher, chapter 33 and 34, you'll see that all of this is Midrash. It is an exegetical form of commentary to interpret the passage. So either through the lens of the rabbis in Judaism or through the lens of the Echai community for Jubilees at Qumran, or later on some medieval Midrash, Jasher, because we went over what Jasher is, the 3 different books of Jasher and so forth, some medieval Midrash from Jasher. And Jasher is not even authentic. Jasher has a series of complications intertextually, right? And complications with the actual primary text itself. They disagree. And you have a few disagreements within Jubilees as well. So what did we choose? Do we choose the commentary over the primary text? Or do we choose the secondary over the primary text? Or do we choose the primary over the secondary text? I'm going to go with the primary. And what I'm here to tell you is that it's good to have this data. This data is profitable, it's valuable, it's helpful, but it is not canon. It is not the primary text, and it's not scripture. And if scripture and the primary text contradicts that, then we got to put that aside. So I'm not saying, again, Jubilees has no value, Jasher has no value. I'm not saying that for those of you who subscribe to it. I'm just saying we're going to deal with the primary text, and we have the methodology necessary to interpret it for ourselves without the Midrash Agadah. Okay. Now, with that being said, right, let's move forward. Right? I went over Jubilees and Jasher. Here's the important thing. I'm going to go over this one more time, and then we're going to jump right into the meat and potatoes, right? Religio. So a phrase that I term called religio Judeo-Christianity. So Judeo comes from Judaism, Christianity comes from Christianity, right? And religio I attach to Judeo-Christianity. Why? Religio is the scrupulous or strict observance of the traditional cultists. Judaism and Christianity are traditional cultists, both of them. And what happens is, if you assume, based on the English translation, which is pulling from the Judeo-Christian perspective, and this means of interpreting the text, where you see that word rape in there in regards to Shechem and Dinah, you are, whether you're aware of it or it's unbeknownst to you, you are adhering to the scrupulous observance of the traditional cultists, the dogma that they set forth, which is something, a statement, a doctrine, or whatever the case may be, that is to be deemed as incontrovertibly true without controversy. It is to be accepted, and that is what a lot of us did. And I showed you the Midrash Agadah influenced that. And then you also have early church fathers who write about Jubilees and add their own commentary to the book of Jubilees. All of this over time has influenced us in 2024, and a lot of us are unaware of this. So that's why I'm using this methodology to address that. All right. Now, there's nothing wrong with the camera. It just gets dark because it's trying to overcompensate for this light over here. So forgive the camera if I'm dark in it and if you can see just the screen. The most important thing is seeing the screen. Okay. On the official video, you're not going to have that effect. So sign up for the Patreon, www.patreon.com/Divine Prospect, and subscribe so you can get access to the official video with the PowerPoint. Okay. All right. So in order for us to derive an objective understanding of the text, there is a methodology that we can employ without the need of midrash, commentaries, any of that. What is it? The first thing is, in order for me to prove that this position is the most plausible and viable option in interpreting the text, I must have the preponderance of the evidence on my side. The second thing is, we're going to do a comparative cultural analysis, which we did in part 1, but we're going to continue to see. We can probably do it in part 2. We're going to see some stuff. A lexical analysis. We're going to go back to the definition, the root definitions of these terms used in the text as keys to unlock things and see it intertextually elsewhere, etc., to derive a meaning or semantic. Semantics is the driving the meaning of something, right? To get the semantics of the actual usage of the words in the text. The intertextual analysis, where we go to different other texts and compare it with other texts, and from there, do that comparison, deduce the common denominators, pull it out, unpack that, take out the principle, and then apply the principle, right? This is this is what people call, what is that? Precept upon precept, line upon line in the Israelite community, even though that's not what that text was talking about. But this is something that's done in our community. All right? And lastly, we're going to do a contextual analysis, which really gives it away. Right? When we go into the narrative, which we're about to do right now, the contextual analysis gives it away. All you have to do is read the context. A lot of people don't even read the context. And if they do, they don't really understand what's going on. So we're going to help you today. All right? So let's fast forward. Let me go over this with y'all real quick. All right, so scene 1 opens up in Genesis. We went over this before, right? Genesis chapter 9, verse 24 to 25. Genesis chapter 10, verse 6 and 15 to 18. Genesis chapter 17 and verse 4. Genesis chapter 24, verses 1. Oh, forgot the other one. 1 to, you can say the whole chapter of Genesis chapter 24. Let's say that. And Genesis chapter 24, 67 in the LXX. That's what we use for scene 1. Okay. Genesis chapter 28, verses 1, 2, and 5. Scene 2, we went into the Torah, dealt with Exodus chapter 22, verses 16 and 17. Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 7. Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 28 and 29. Right? Deuteronomy chapter 21, verses 10 to 14. And then we went to scene 3, and we looked at rape as understood in the ancient Near East. We dealt with Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 23 to 27. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 30. Judges chapter 19, verse 22 to 25, 2 Samuel chapter 13, verses 7 to 14, and Isaiah chapter 13 and verse 16, right? We went into all these extra biblical sources. We dealt with Gentile marriage prohibitions. We went into Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 1 to 4, Joshua chapter 23, verses 11 and 13, Judges chapter 14 and verse 3, Nehemiah chapter 10 and verse 30. Now, if you have access to the PDF, you should be able to go back and look over these scriptures. You have that as your proof of reference, okay? Scene 5, we dealt with women's inheritance. Numbers chapter 36, verses 6 to 10 and 12, right? All of that gives you the prerequisite information to correct your lenses now as we jump into Genesis chapter 24, okay? So now we're on scene 6, which is Shechem and Dinah. Shechem and Dinah. Let's get into it. Genesis chapter 34. All right? I'm going to wait, give you some time to go grab that. And you should, again, be able to follow based on your, you should be able to follow based on the sheets that you guys should have in front of you. If everybody's ready, hit 1. If everybody's ready, hit 1. If you're ready, hit 1. Hit 1 if you're ready. Okay. All right. Everybody's ready. Then I'm assuming everybody has the PDF in front of them. So let's dive into it. So we got 4 important, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 more sections to get through today. We got an hour and a half now, so we should be good. All right. All right, let me get there on my notes. All right, so the pop-up I had to get out the way. Okay, come on. All right, here we go. All right, so let's get into this, all right? This is Shechem and Dinah, okay? Let's see. Maybe I could go here. Yeah, so we're gonna do that in 1 second. All right, let's stay at Genesis 34 till we get to that section, okay? All right, now, Genesis chapter 34, and it says, now Dinah, Leah's daughter, whom she bore to Yaakov or Jacob, went to meet the young women of the land, right? So typically in Israelite culture, whenever they went to a different place, they would typically the daughters or the moms or the wives will go and they will socialize with the women first, right? That would typically happen before the men got involved, right? But typically, in a case like this with Leah, we don't know the age of Leah according to the primary text. We know what the commentaries say. Do not let the commentaries shift around in your head and give you a predisposition to what the primary text is saying. So during that time period, the daughters will go, right? The wives will go, and they will see out the other women in that area, right? And they will strike up a conversation, build a rapport. But typically, the men will not be far behind. In the event that something happens to those women, there will be a male, whether it's an uncle, a brother, a cousin, a father, they will be close behind. In this situation, we see that this was an act that Dinah did by herself, okay? Doesn't say her mother Leah was with her. Didn't say any other women were with her. Didn't say her brothers were with her. Her father was with her. It doesn't say that, okay? It just says that she went to do this. And again, this was customary, but she was by herself. Verse 2, Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, chief of the country, saw her. So he saw her engaging with the daughters or young women of the land and lay with her. Shechav, laid with her. So he saw her, he saw her and took her. Lachach. He saw her and took her, the text says, and laid with her, Shechav, and disgraced her, humiliated her. Anah. Interesting. So in this text, we are posed with an interesting inquiry. And that inquiry is, which word here that we're looking at gives us the idea that Dinah was raped by Shechem? Which one? Well, the word there for lechach, we see the same word used with Isaac and Rebekah. Isaac took Rebekah. Okay. So we know that word can be it. And again, consult with down below. Everyone should have the lexicon. Feel free to consult with the lexicon below. Matter of fact, let's go to the lexicon below. On your sheets, it should be down at the bottom. And I'm going to read this from the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament, okay? And now, let me go back. In order to best understand what is taking place here, you want to look for the verbal root. If it's a verb, in this case, the verbal root is a kal stem. So when you go to the lexicon, look for the kal, Q-A-L entry, right? That's a simple active action, okay? So let's take a look at it. And this is what it says. Hold on one second. Let me get to it. All right, and this is what it says, okay? And I had to give this to you so you can understand it. Then I have to take my word for it, but okay, let's go to it, right? All right. So this one here, lachach, cow stem, right? When we jump down, because we want to see what we see Genesis chapter 34 in regards to it. When we jump down, we're going to go to verse 7, okay? Verse 7, and it says, to take a wife, which we see in Genesis chapter 25 and Genesis chapter 34. To take someone as a wife, to receive them. So the nominative acts on the accusative. So he initiates the process of receiving her in a capacity that can be considered a betrothal or a marriage, right? We see that. That's the intent. That's what we get for the entry. Now, let's go down to the BDB. In this case, I have the enhanced Brown Driver Briggs. And we're going to go to lachach there as well, right? When we go to the enhanced Brown Driver Briggs for lachach, kalsem, we get to be taken in marriage. In Arabic, it means to conceive or impregnate. In Ethiopic, it's to receive. These are all sister Semitic languages. In the book of Genesis, chapter 34, it means to take one as a wife. This is not rape. Lachach does not mean rape. So right there, one strike. That's one strike. All right, let's go. Next pitch. Let's go to the next one. Next word is shechem. Shechem. That is the word for lie, to lie with somebody, right? And I turn to sleep with somebody, all right? So let's go to the lexicon, right? And there's additional lexicons there. Matter of fact, I'll go through those as well. Let's go through the quick, brief ones first. So shechem should be the second one. And shechem means, this is from the Halot, the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament, right? Shechem means to lie down. Cloud entry D means to lie down and have sexual intercourse. All right? Strike two. Matter of fact, let's go to another lexicon because we got to do 2 or 3 witnesses to every word established. This is the enhanced BDB. Shechem means to lie down. That's what it says in verse 1. Lie down. To sleep together. Entry 3. To have sexual relations. Strike 2. That has nothing to do with rape. Let's go back. The word rape ain't there so far. We ain't find the word rape. Okay? So, last word there is disgrace. Ana. Surely this is the word that means rape, right? Okay. And after I go through these 2 basic lexicons, we're going to get down to some better lexicons, right? Remember, we went over the scriptures that deal with rape and the usage of the terms there. None of those terms are here. The closest one is ana, right? And shachav is there as well. But when you have lachak preceding this, it's not rape. That means everything that follows is not rape. I just want you to keep this in mind. All right? So let's get to anav. Okay? This is from the halot. This is anav. Anav can mean to oppress, cause someone to feel dependent. Cause someone to feel dependent. Second entry is to humiliate a woman by an enforced marriage. Now, this one says in entry 2, to do violence to rape a woman. There you go. That's it. That's rape. That's rape, Divine. So remember that term, the preponderance of the evidence? So we have one entry in the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament in regard to this word, anab, and they have it there as rape. Fascinating. And you'll say, case closed, Divine. I said, nope. We need another witness. One witness is not enough. This could be a theological bias by the author of this, of authors, plural, of this lexicon, right? But rape in what sense? See, the rape that we understand, and I went over this with the English definition, is do violence to by force. But when we look at the sources from the ancient Near East, unless there's another verb means to overpower, strengthen, to do violence towards, something along those lines, like to ravish and so forth, if those words are not there within that same clause or clauses within that passage, it's not rape. So how should it be interpreted? Well, when I say not rape, meaning in the English Western society by violence, but rape in the ancient times is if you don't do the marriage protocol appropriately, in those cultures, that is considered rape. But not by our connotation of rape or our dictionary entry and understanding of rape, but in theirs because you are humiliating that woman's sacred part, her virginity, a betula, is being taken outside of the marriage protocol, which involves various phases. I'm going to get into that. Therefore, her social status from a virgin has been diminished because now a man has taken her virginity and broken a hymen and entered into her and taken her virginity. and did not do everything else that is appropriate according to the culture. And we get to the conclusion, we're going to dive into a little more of that, but that is what's taking place when it says humiliate. How do I know? How do you know that, Divine? Let's go further. Let's go get another witness. Here's the second lexicon. This is the enhanced Brown Driver Briggs. And I'm going to go into that other meaning there that we see in Isaiah. So we have the word anah there. Now here, an anah means to bow down, to afflict, right? When we go to the second entry, it means to humble a woman by cohabitation. This is why in the narrative, you don't see Dinah anymore after verse 1 and 2. After verse 2, we don't hear nothing about Dinah. Why? The intention was that she was to be to cohabit with Shechem. She's supposed to be cohabiting. That's why she didn't come when the father of Shechem, Hamor, went to Yaakov and his sons to go speak about this. She was living with Shechem. Let's go. Hey, I'm going to reveal some more stuff as we go in, but that's what's going on right now. So through cohabitation. So therefore, we cannot say yes. Anah automatically means rape because it depends on the context and what's going on. We're going to get into more of the context. I just started. So we don't have a second witness to rape as an entry in a lexicon. We only have that in the halot, but the enhanced BDB does not agree with that. It actually sees it from the cultural vantage point because one of the benefits of the BDB is that it does a comparative linguistic analysis or lexical analysis of a root term, meaning that it looks at other Semitic languages to see how it is understood in those cultures and deduces the common denominator as the best means of interpreting what we see in the Israelite text or the Tanakh. Let me see if we got some more there on Anah. Right. Well, matter of fact, let's go back over. Let me go back over the three terms. This is very important, okay? Because this is the only place you see the word rape in the English translations in verse 2. So we're going to go to the Dictionary of Classical Hebrew. Lachak there means entry 2, marry, take in, for marriage, sexual interest. You know, take in. When you go back to Isaac and Rebekah, when Rebekah was presented to Isaac by the servant of Abraham, he took her. Where? In his mother's tent. Shechem saw her. He took her. He received her. He laid with her. And then now his intentions was, this will be your habitation along with me, Dinah. So some would say, well, Dinah's being held by force. The text doesn't say that. Where in the primary text does it say Dinah was being held by force against her will? That he had servants holding her down and restraining her? No. The intention was cohabitation. We're going to see that as we go through the rest of the context. Woo! All right, so I got another witness. Married, taken, for marriage, sexual intercourse, and we see there of daughters, we have Genesis chapter 34, verse 2. You see that? If his intention is to take her in and receive her, and then lay with her in the process, it says he humiliated her. We're going to find out what that really entails by reading the context. He removed her virginity, meaning that her social status was diminished or devalued. How do we know? We're going to get that verse in Isaiah in 1 second. That is what's going on there. See, this is stuff that you've never seen before in the text because a lot of us don't have the corrective lenses to see it appropriately because we're relying on commentaries to understand it when we don't need that anymore in 2024. That's optional. Shechem means to lie with, besides, sleep with, have sexual relations with, etc. And we see Genesis 34 means to have sex with. Anah means to be afflicted. Second entry, and this is from the Dictionary of Classical Hebrew, which is my favorite lexicon, just so you know. It means, in verse 2, humiliate a woman sexually by rape. You say, Devon, that's rape right there. 2 rapes. 2 rapes, Devon, but wait, slow down. Read the next. By rape or unlawful intercourse. Genesis chapter 34, verse 2. So what the author did with this entry is he left it open. to determine if it's rape or unlawful intercourse, and he gives you several scriptures. Not only does he give you Genesis chapter 34 and Deuteronomy 22, verses 24 and 29, but he also does, in this lexicon, which I really enjoy it for, he goes to the Dead Sea Scrolls and see if there's another reference in there. And 11 QT, we got another reference there. He also goes to Judges chapter 19 and 20, Judges chapter 20 and 5, 2 Samuel chapter 13, 12, 14. Hey, wait, look at this. You see this? So it's not just looking at Genesis 34, but any of these passages, Ezekiel 22, verses 10 and 11, and Lamentations 5 and 11, looking at all these passages, some of them would say rape, some of them is unlawful intercourse. And we're going to find out as we continue to read the narrative that it's the unlawful intercourse which should be the best translation of what we find in Genesis chapter 34. And then we also have enforced marriage, which is Deuteronomy 21, verse 14. Now we get to the theological lexicon of the Old Testament, right? We have an interesting word there, aras. So aras there means a betrothal, right? Engaged, as we say in the English language, right? This is something very interesting. I want to read some of this for you because this is very interesting, right? So the main entry is betrothed, means to betroth the wife, a bridegroom, etc., right? I'm going to entry 3. The basic meaning in the PL, resultative, expressing a jurisdictionally comprehensible result, should be rendered to betroth the wife. The freer translation, betroth, from a man's perspective, should not be understood in distinction from contemporary usage as an indication of a simple engagement with the possibility of withdrawal in contrast to the public legal act of marriage. The verb is constructed with a simple accusative, to be, describes the bride price, 2 Samuel 3, verse 14, for the foreskins of 100 Philistines, Hosea chapter 2, verse 21. The man is always the subject. The woman is the object to whom he betroths himself. The plural forms indicate the pertinent passive to be betrothed from the woman's perspective. The virgin, Bethulah, in Exodus 22:15, Deuteronomy 22:23, and verse 28, or the maiden, Na'ara, Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 25, is the subject in these clauses. The determination of the legal meaning and therefore also the precise translation of the term is not entirely clear in the view of the limited number of examples. First of all, on one hand, one should distinguish the intention of aras from that of the marriage ceremony proper, which we're going to get into. A man may have betrothed a maiden, but not yet have taken her as a wife. Lachach, Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 11, Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 13, etc. Or it could be Baal, which means to marry, which means Baal, when the man is the Baal status, he's the head of the household because the woman is now in his custody, in his care. She's cohabitating with him, and he's the head of household. That's why you see that language Baal there to mean husband. There's no word husband in Hebrew. It is the context that gives you the denotation of how that term should be translated in our English context. So Baal, Lachach, is directly juxtaposed to Aras in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 7, into the Tehifil Le'isa in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 29. One should also clearly distinguish Aras from Shachav, which means to lie with. Just because you lie with somebody does not mean you're betrothed to them. I know a lot of people will say sex is marriage, but just because you lie down with somebody does not mean you're betrothed to them. Doesn't automatically mean that, because there's an element that's missing. And we see that Shechem at least makes an attempt to take care of that. From here, lachach, again, means to take, to receive, to marry, which we see in there. Ana, which means to answer. That is this chief or prime or rosh definition of that term, ana, which means to respond, to answer, right? But then we see in the context it can change, and the word can also mean to humble. In regards to willing, watch this. This is the second paragraph of this theological dictionary. And it says this, listen, watch this. The verb ana occurs in Hebrew Old Testament in the kal, in transitive, right? The following may be listed as derivatives, which it lists down there. But I'm going to give this to you. It says inyan, which means occupation, and aona, willing involvement or for marital intercourse. Woo! Willing involvement in marital intercourse? That is fascinating. So, ana can mean that a woman's social status has been diminished because she's no longer a virgin, right? She's not a virgin, so she doesn't have that to offer her husband. That has been removed. But it also, when we flesh it out in ana, based on the context, it could be willing involvement in a marital intercourse. Oh, man. When you go down to the rest of this, the Theological Dictionary of Old Testament, there's more for lakach, for shachav, lakach. Entry 3, taking a wife. This term apparently includes the terminus technicus for marriage, to take a wife as one's wife. The man must take the initiative, since legally the woman becomes a member of her husband's family through marriage. If the primary wife brings maid servants into the marriage, she is empowered to give one of these maids to her husband as a wife. Genesis chapter 21, verse 21 notes that the apparently impressive woman Hagar took a wife for her son. Merely taking a woman, however, is a base act. Subsequent marriage can rectify the situation. You hear that? So you can take somebody, lay with them, but you have to do the rest of the process in order for it to be legitimized in the eyes of the society. Is Shechem doing that or no? The regulation pertaining to military service is noteworthy. If a man is betrothed to a woman but has not yet taken her, he is given leave from military service until he has ensured the continuation of his name. That's important. It goes to take a daughter, an expression reflecting Persian customs, is related to Esther chapter 2, verse 7 and verse 15. It is doubtful whether adoption was known in Israel itself. That's fascinating. But I'm going to let you go into the rest of that. I'm going to go back to the text. And then there's the Greek terms there too for the Septuagint. I may not have that time to go into that, but you have the references to go look it up yourself, and you'll see that they're equivalent. The Greek term labano, that is equivalent to lechach. Koimao, that's equivalent to shachav. And then what's the other one? What's the other one we got? Matter of fact, we'll go into that. Let me go back to the narrative. After learning these words, let's see what Shechem is doing. Let's see what he's doing. All right? We go back to Dinah Hamor in your sheets. It says, disgraced her. And the comparative is Isaiah 25:5, which means to diminish or reduce. That is what happened when they had intercourse. He diminished and reduced her social status because she's no longer a virgin. She is one that has known a man. And we can get that. The best translation to see that is from the JPS 2006, which you can get from safaria.org. Verse 3, then he became very attached to Dinah, Jacob's daughter. So there's an attachment there now. He fell in love. Weye echav. He fell in love with her. Root word is ached. Love, as we know as love, but there's a different connotation, so denotation to love in the Hebrew culture than it is in English, because the love, it depends on what the role and responsibilities of the male and female, the woman and the man and the wife and the husband, wife, they each have roles. How do you showcase love in the ancient Near East? My role as a man is to provide, to protect, and produce. If I'm doing all these three for my wife, I love her. That is how you can see that I love her. It's not the romantic way, which goes back to the word romance, which goes back to the word Roman. That's Roman culture. So Divine, I can't have no romance. I didn't say that. We do have a form of romance. We see that in Song of Solomon, right? But I'm saying that word romance, romantic, goes back to Roman, and that goes back to Rome's customs. That's a Western society. It's not Eastern society. So saying I love you is not enough. You must show you love by your actions. You must be fulfilling your responsibilities to that spouse or significant other. As a woman, her job is to make the house the home, whether it's a tent or whether it's a mud brick house, whether she makes it a home. Why? By nurturing and caring that which was produced. That's number one. Number two, by managing the affairs of the household. And number three, by tending to her husband. What? His sexual needs. And also the women help to provide food. She would feed him. This is how you demonstrate love to each other. Now, in 2024, that definition has expanded its semantic range. but we must shrink it down so we must understand what is going on in this text. So now when we see in the English translation, when it says he spoke romantically to her, no, the text says that he spoke to her lev, her heart. Yo, this man got attached to her through consensual sexual intercourse and cohabitation. He fell in love with her, which means he's showing that he's going to provide in the capacity of what we would call a husband. Remember, that's love. And he spoke to her lev, her heart, or her nefesh, her soul. Why would this man do this after he raped and abused this woman? Rapists, they've done a study on rapists that say how many rapists actually love their victims. Prison study. Less than 5%. It is not customary for a rapist after abusing that woman to romantically love her, speak to her soul, fall in love with her. And we see in the ancient Greece, I showed you an example of rape in Judges. After the men had their way with the concubine of the priest, they threw her away. They let her go. They was not speaking romantically to her. They were not running game on her. They were not attached to her. So when we say that, we have to be very aware of what we're talking about. Shechem said to his father Hamor, acquire this young girl as my wife. So now he's going through the process of marriage. In his culture, when you watch this, woo, wait, scripture just came to mind. Wait, hold on, scripture just came to mind. I want to show y'all something real quick. I want to mess some heads up today. Give me 1 second. Woo, about to work. I'm about to work. Let's go. All right. I'm about to show y'all something real quick. Oh, man. Watch this. Let me see. This is one I want. No, I want the one in Samuel. I'm going to mess y'all heads up. Y'all beefing about Shechem. Now, remember, Shechem was a prince. So the way prince do things, if they like a woman, they'll take her. But if he gets attached and loves her and speaks to the soul, now he goes through the process of marriage. He's a prince. He's royalty. He's a dignitary. He's not the regular dude off the street. I'm going to show you this. Watch this. Let me mess your heads up real quick. All right? I got this real quick. I got you. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. This is not even part of the lecture. 1 Samuel chapter 8. Watch this. Verse 6. But when they said, the children of Israel, let's go to verse 4. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, you are old, and your sons do not follow your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have. Verse 6. But when they said, give us a king to lead us, this displeased Samuel, so he prayed to the Most High. Most High told him what to do. Most High said, verse 9, I'll listen to them. Verse 10, watch this. Samuel told the words of the Most High to the people who were asking for a king. Verse 11, he said, this is what the king who will reign over you will claim as his rights. Claim as his rights. Watch this. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equipment for the chariots. Verse 13, he will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take your grain and your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Your male and female servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and he will take your donkeys. He's going to take everything. He's even going to take the daughters of men that he sees fair, and he's going to take them as his own. We see that with David and Bathsheba. Bathsheba and David. He saw another man's wife and took her. This is what kings do. These are what dignitary does. And if they choose after that to go through the marriage protocol, that goes to show that they really love this woman, that they want her to take a share of his ownership, and that her child can be the heir to the throne. Shechem was doing a solid in his eyes, keyword in his eyes, with Dinah. because if she was pregnant and bore seed, that son would be a king at some point. But we're going to see that intermarriage, according to Israelite culture and customs, that was a no-no. That was a taboo. So we have two different perspectives. We have the Israelite perspective, and then we have the Hivite perspective. So there was something that was understood by Jacob and her brothers, that we should not intermingle seed. Why? Because Isaac and Abraham told their servants and their children, you need to go get a woman, not from the Canaanites, but go get her from where your kinsfolk is at. So the king will take whatever you want. Verse 18, when the day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, but the Lord will not answer you in that day. You see that? The king can have whatever he wants. Israel's king did that to them. But y'all mad at Shechem? Let's jump back to the narrative. I'm just messing with y'all right now. Let's get back into this text. All right? When Jacob heard that Shechem had violated his daughter, Dinah, yes, he took her virginity. He cannot offer her to a man that wants to court her and be her husband because she has no virginity. Therefore, her social status has to be diminished. And if the society knows that her social status has been diminished because she's known a man and she's not married to that man, that will diminish her status to that of a concubine. That is disgraceful and shameful in this Semitic culture. Okay. Hivites is not a Semitic culture. So when Jacob heard that Shechem had violated his daughter Dinah, his sons were with the livestock in the field, so Jacob remained silent until they came in. Now, let's go into this. I want to show you this real quick. It's from the NIV Cultural Background Study Bible. In societies in which marriages were arranged with economic and sociological goals in mind, the couple did not always have an opportunity to pursue their love interests. One way around the problem of parents' unwillingness to accept their children's preference for a spouse was to bypass the process and engage in consensual intercourse. Whether this expression of interest was only on the part of the would-be husband, in which case it would be termed rape, or involved a mutual decision of engaging in consensual sex, the result is similar. The parents would generally have to go ahead with allowing the marriage. This is not rape. This is not rape. He's not doing violence to her. He's not overpowering her. He's not raping her. L'chak means he's initiating as a nominative the male the process of marriage, of receiving this woman into his household, cohabitation. Then he laid with her, and then now he reduced her status because his intention is that he wanted to marry her. Both Exodus chapter 22, verse 16 and 17, and Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 20 and 29 include regulations to address this situation. It was also regulated in the ancient Near Eastern law. Whether Dinah had been raped or virtually eloped, the family was undeniably shamed by the incident. A rape would certainly be tragic and devastating to Dinah and family. But if Dinah were in any way involved in the decision, of laying down together, the family would be ashamed not only by Shechem's act, because he didn't do it the proper way, but also by Dinah's lack of respect for the family. Cultural Background Study Bible, pages 77 to 78, footnote Genesis chapter 34 and verse 2. Let's keep going. I threw another side note there for Matthew chapter 21, Matthew chapter 1, verse 24. But I'm gonna skip on that. Let's go to verse 6. Then Shechem's father Hamor went to speak with Jacob about Dinah. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons, having heard the news, came in from the field. They were distressed and very angry because he had committed an outrage. Ned Balah. He committed an outrage in Israel by lying, liskav, that's an infinitive, count infinitive, but the root is shakav, with Jacob's daughter, a thing not to be done. That's the best translation from the JPS 2006. So they were upset. They were angry. They were bothered because in Israel, now the text says in Israel, this is how you know that a prescribe, remember I told you all that in part 1, prescribe is writing this in retrospect. There was no Israel there. There was no nation called Israel. There was Jacob. The text is still calling Jacob, Jacob. It's not even calling him Israel in this. It's because this is an anachronism, a prescribed hundreds of years later. in this case, maybe 1,000 years later, is writing this in his time period, understanding the nation of Israel, which he is in, and now he's using that as a lens, saying that according to the Israelite culture, this is something that's not to be done. That's not the proper protocol for marriage, according to the Israelite culture. So Shechem, on his end, he wasn't doing anything wrong as a prince of the Hivite peoples. But on the Israelite side, it was wrong, brother. You didn't do the proper protocol. We're going to get into that, all right? Let me see, 6:07. All right, we got 53 minutes. Verse 8, and Hamor spoke with them, saying, my son Shechem. Now this is, so in those ancient times, if the son is interested in a maiden, in a virgin, he would tell his dad would go and approach the father of the maiden, and they would have a conversation about that. So now, Shechem is doing the right thing by going to his dad and telling his dad, talk to her father so you guys can make that a legal pact. He didn't rape her. You don't do this if you're raping somebody. Because you don't have to. You reduce their value. You don't care about the victim. So why would he go through all this? Not just that. Let's keep going. Verse 9. Verse 8. And Hamor spoke to them, saying, my son Shechem longs for the soul of your daughter. Please give her to him in marriage. You see that? Verse 9, intermarry with us. Let us marry your daughters and take our daughters as wives. No, take them as hoes. Take them as jump-offs. Take them as concubines. He says, take them as wives. As wives for yourselves. Verse 10, you may live among us and the land will be open to you. Whoa, what? Now you may live with us off the strength of Shechem and Dinah? Abusers are not going to offer their land. So you can do whatever you want in it. Live in it, travel freely in it, and acquire property. A rapist is not going to do this with his victim. He's not going to tell his dad, hey, look, I raped this girl, so yeah, I want to marry her, but I want you to get the permission from the girl's father and give this offer to them. Give them land, property, whatever. Context. This is the contextual analysis here with some of the lexical analysis. All right. Verse 11, then Shechem said to Dinah's father and brothers, let me find favor in your sight, and whatever you require of me, I'll give. Rapist is not going to go to the dad and the girl, the victim's brothers and mother and family and say, hey, listen, I raped your daughter. Okay, cool. Yeah, I just raped her. But yo, whatever you want from me, I'll give it to you. Hey, will that make up for me raping your daughter? What? Does that sound right in 2024? Don't sound right then either. Keep going. Verse 12, you can make the bride price. Now, the bride price is an essential element of proper marriage protocol. The bride price. Why? Because the bride price is what the groom-to-be pays the father of the bride-to-be, because that woman is being removed as part of the workforce in the household. So that money is going towards the father to compensate for the loss of that individual in the household that's contributing to the work, where they can hire somebody to take her place until the family can equalize the responsibilities within the home. Or sometimes if the father doesn't need it, he'll keep it. So in the event that there's a divorce, that bride price will be given to the daughter so she can take care of herself until she's either married again or she's able to leave her father's house and live independently. Okay. You can make the bride price and the gift I must bring very expensive. What rapist is going to say that to the family of the victim? Hey, whatever you want me to give you, because I raped your daughter, just tell me what it is. Name your price. I'll give it to you, right? And I'll give whatever you ask me. Just give me the young woman as my hoe. Wait, what? As my concubine. As my side piece. As my jump off. No. It says my wife. That's what the text said. I didn't write that. Verse 13, Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father Hamor deceitfully. So now Jacob, his sons, the forefathers, the patriarchs of the tribes of Israel, they dealt deceitfully. They were not being honest. I'm going to show you something in here real quick. They were not being honest. They were deceiving Shechem and Hamor. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? What we're going to see is because they actually wanted everything that Shechem and Hamor had. They saw them as inferior, being uncircumcised Hivites who are from the lineage of Canaan, who is a cursed individual and his seed is cursed. They are beneath them. Why? Because Genesis 9 said that they will be your servants. Oh, y'all missed this. The text says that they will be Canaan and his seed is going to be the servants of Shem and his seeds. They saw them as beneath them. So they wanted to use this as an opportunity to take everything that they had. Dinah was just a byproduct of this. Like it was disgraceful, it was ashamed, and they felt for their sister, but they also had this hidden desire to take everything they had because they felt that they didn't even own it anyway. See what happens when you get too pompous and there's too much hubris when you're told that I will make you above all nations. Why? Because you're going to have a greater responsibility, obligation, and liability when you do something. We are the examples. That's why Yah said it to Israel. They're to be his examples, to get his reputation, fame out to the rest of the nation so they can worship the true God, the true power in heaven. But Israel, they took advantage of that. And some of us do the same. Let's keep going. Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father Hamor deceitfully when they spoke because Shechem had violated. Now that word there, tameh or tameh, refers to making unclean. They made her unclean. Every time a man lays with a woman, he makes her unclean. Torah law says if a man and woman lay down and have sex, they're unclean until the evening. He has made their sister and Jacob's daughter unclean. Why? Because this is an uncircumcised Gentile going into her, removing her virginity, right? And then now making her unclean. That term unclean that's used there, this is how we know that a priest scribe is writing this, because that terminology would not have been used contemporarily at that time. Contemporaneous to this event, that term would have been used because this term is a priestly term. Jacob was not a priest. Jacob's sons were not priests. You said, what about Levi? Levi's not a priest. The priesthood through Levi don't come until Moses and Aaron come on the scene. He had violated or made her unclean. Who? Their sister Dinah. Verse 14, they said to them, we cannot give our sister to a man who is not circumcised. In part 1, we talked about the detesting towards those who are uncircumcised, i.e. the Philistines and other nations. So this man is uncircumcised, which means he does not have a covenant with Yah. Therefore, he is not part of our ethnic group. Okay? And again, circumcision by itself is not enough to include you into the ethnic group of Israel. You have to come from that bloodline. That circumcision can bring you into the fellowship with them, into the covenant with Yah, but you're still not ethnically Israel. And we see this in Torah. There are separate laws that are just for Gentiles and some laws that pertain for Hebrews. How do we know? Go into the law of Jubilee. The Hebrew servant to his brother can be released after 7 years, but the Gentile, not going nowhere. Hebrews, if they see a carcass that's been ripped to shreds, they're not died for themselves, them that died for themselves, or that they did not slaughter for food, they can't touch it, they can't eat it, but they can sell it to a Gentile. That's Torah. I didn't write that. I didn't make that up. So it says, we can't give her to you because you're uncircumcised, and that would be a herpah. That would be a disgrace. Why would we do that? Herpah. Why would we do that? That would be a disgrace to us. It's not part of our customs, our traditions, who we are. We will give you our consent on this one condition. They lied. They lied to him. Is that righteous? That they lied to him? Was that righteous? None of these individuals is perfect. None of the sons of Jacob was perfect. Jacob himself was not perfect. They lied. They deceived, and now they're lying. We will give you our consent on this one condition. You must become like us by circumcising your male. So Abraham circumcised himself, circumcised his children, and all of his house, all the males in his household were circumcised. You know, some of them were Egyptians that he got from out of Egypt, along with Hagar. And some of them were men from the land that lived in the household of Abraham. They all had to get circumcised. We see in Exodus chapter 12, if any foreigner who is a permanent resident amongst Israel wants to partake in Passover, they must be circumcised. Circumcision brings you in covenant with Yah and closes the gap between the Gentile and the Jew. Circumcision. That's important. So they say, look, circumcise all of them. Verse 16. Then we will give you our daughters to marry. So now they're making a false promise. And we will take your daughters as wives. Now that they was probably telling the truth for ourselves, and we will live among you and become one people. Watch verse 17. So you got to pay attention to the context. Watch it, verse 17. But if you do not agree to our terms of being circumcised, then we will take our sister and depart. So watch this. Right here in verse 17, they had the opportunity to rescue Dinah if she was being held against her will and if she was being raped, molested, abused, beaten. Why would they wait? They had the capability of retrieving Dinah right here, and they proclaimed it. Was there any resistance? Oh, if you go take her, we're going to fight you, go to war. Let's see verse 18. Their offer pleased Hamor and his son Shechem. There was no resistance to this. That means at any given time, the sons of Jacob could have went and got this sister. Y'all look, those of you saying she got raped, y'all looking bad, looking really bad and sloppy out in these streets. I'm just saying, they had the opportunity to get their sister. Hamor and Shechem were happy with this. Because guess what? No bride price was asked for. They simply said, just get circumcised. That's how you know that they were being deceived. Maybe Hamor and his son Shechem didn't realize it was being gained because no bride price was offered. They just said, just get circumcised. But remember, that can also be a bride price, as we see in the situation with David and Saul. Foreskins can be a bride price. That's another conversation. Verse 19, the young man did not delay. He didn't delay. He wanted to marry her. And doing what they asked because he wanted Jacob's daughter Dinah badly. Now he was more important than anyone in his father's household. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the gate of their city and spoke to the men of this city. These men are at peace with us, so let them live in the land and travel freely in it, for the land is wide enough for them. We will take their daughters as wives, not as hoes, as concubines, and we will give them our daughters to marry. Only on this one condition will these men consent to live with us and become one people. See that? They're thinking, oh, we're going to be one people. They demand that every male among us be circumcised just as they are circumcised. If we do so, won't their livestock, their property, and all their animals become ours? So let's consent to their demand so they will live amongst us, meaning that we're all going to be one people sharing all our resources. This is what they think is going to happen. Verse 24, all the men who assembled at the city gate agreed with Hamor and his son Shechem. Every male who was assembled at the city gate was circumcised. In 3 days, they were still in pain. Two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and went to the unsuspecting. They did not think there was going to be ravaged, attacked, abused, killed city and slaughtered every male. Wait till I get you the epoch of this when we get towards the end. So Simeon and Levi, these men are in pain. They can't fight back. They just came and killed all of them. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with the sword, took Dinah from Shechem's house and left. Jacob's sons killed them and looted the city because their sister had been violated, made unclean, defiled. They took their flocks, herds, and donkeys, as well as everything in the city and in the surrounding fields, and all their wealth and all their little ones, and their wives they took captive. Woo! The word there is shabu, shavu, woo, shabu. And that goes to the root word shabah, and that literally means to take as a prisoner. So they took their wives and their children as prisoners. Why are they doing this? As retribution for Dinah? Well, is there a law that says that that's what they're supposed to do? Was that part of their culture or some law? We've never seen this precedence. They're actually setting a precedence. We've never seen this prior to this happening. This is crazy. Verse 30. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, to their wives' captives, and they plundered even all that was in the house. So they robbed them. They took their kids. They took their wives as captives, not as wives. They didn't marry these women. They just took them as concubines because, again, they're foreign women. They don't mean anything. They're not marrying foreign women. They know that from Isaac and Abraham. And you know that Canaan seed is cursed. Woo! And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi. So again, if this was something that was sanctioned amongst the family and was a lineal tradition and custom, Jacob would have been on board. But Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have brought ruin. So not only did they do it, their brothers joined them and did the same thing. So Jacob is concerned. He's distressed. He's angry. He's bothered by this. This is not a lineal custom, tradition amongst us. You have brought ruin on me by making me a foul odor among the inhabitants of the land. Why is the father pushing back if they did something righteous? Among the Canaanites and Perizzites, I am few in number. They will join forces against me and attack me, and both I and my family will be destroyed. Now, here's the justification of his sons, Simeon and Levi. They replied, should he treat our sister like a common prostitute? Now, remember, they had the capability of taking their sister because she was violated, and there was no resistance from Hamor and Shechem. They did not take their sister and depart. They decided to use that as an excuse to steal everything. So she should be a concubine, a prostitute, because that's what in their mind, that's all they're gonna do with the woman from our tribe. They're only gonna probably rape her. And I'm adding that part. Abuse her, pass her around. You know, she's gonna have to survive by being a prostitute. Why would you allow our sister to be in that situation, Dad? But see, that wasn't the issue. The issue wasn't that you was gonna take your sister and leave. The issue was y'all did all of this debauchery and stealing. That was the problem. That was the issue. Jacob was not on board. He was against it. And we see in the next chapter, Jacob leaves because of this. One thing I want you to know, take away. Aside from everything that's saying, the word there for common prostitute is the word zanah. And you can go into look what that is in the lexicon, etc. But one thing I want you to take away from this narrative. Nowhere in this entire narrative do we see Yod He Vav He. We don't see Lord in uppercase. We don't see Yod He Vav He. We don't see Yah. We don't see Elohim. We don't see the Most High. Yah was never in this narrative. No word from Yah came to them on Simeon and Levi. I want you to go, and as retribution for your sister, go and kill everything and steal everything. Jacob, I want to let you know that your sons have been committed by me to go and do this act because your daughter Dinah was raped and abused and beaten. It. Yah is not in this narrative. So now when I go back to Jasher, Jubilees, when I go back to the rabbinic Midrash Agadah, they said that the Lord was responsible for this, but the text doesn't say that. Who are we to believe? Okay, I'm gonna transition. Let's transition. A lot more to be said, but we're going to get into some comparative textual analysis, right? Let's move past that, all right? So if we go into other primary texts of Bereshit or Genesis, such as the LXX, the Dead Sea Scrolls, LXX, Dead Sea Scrolls, Samaritan Pentateuch, because these are all texts that represent the primary text. So there's a parent text and it splits off, and so the tradition you get from the LXX or Septuagint, the tradition you get from the Masoretic text that comes much later, the tradition you get from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the tradition you get to Samaritan Pentateuch. These are all the primary texts of Genesis. Do any of those texts disagree with the narrative that we find in the Masoretic text? If they do, we can give leeway to all the other commentary. If they don't, we simply can't. Genesis chapter 34, and the Septuagint reads, and Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob, went forth to observe the daughters of the inhabitants, and Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the ruler of the land, saw her and took her, labano. He took her. That's the same word equivalent to what we get in the Hebrew text. Equivalent of the same word, lachach, or lachech. Same one. And lay with her, koi ma'o. Equivalent with shechav in the Hebrew text, and humbled her, tapai na'o. Tapai na'o. That is the equivalent of ana in the Hebrew text. There is no deviance. That translation is from the LXX Brenton translation of 1851. A more modern translation says, now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, and I put the Greek text up there as well that they both pulling from, whom she had born to Yaakov, went out to observe the daughters of the inhabitants, and Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Karite, the ruler of the land, saw her, and seizing her, Labano, and lay with her, koi mao, with her, and humbled her, tapai ano. Same thing. NET translation of the Septuagint. There's no deviance. It's read the same. And if you read the rest of the narrative, it is equivalent. Dead Sea Scrolls? Well, maybe it's Dead Sea Scrolls, because that's where we found the Book of Jubilees. None of the Dead Sea Scrolls have Genesis chapter 34 and verse 2 intact. None of them. You're not going to find Genesis 34 and 2 anywhere there. There are other portions of Genesis chapter 34. A lot of them are incomplete, but you're not going to see anything on verse 2. However, when we look at the manuscripts that do possess portions of Genesis 34, there are no differences with the Hebrew Masoretic text. This leads scholars to believe that there is no proven means to assume that the rest of the text disagrees. This is how we deal with textual criticism. So according to the minds of the scholars, as much as we do have in Genesis 34 that agrees with the Masoretic text, which I sent you on the sheet, you can see an example of that. This is 4Q576 Genesis, or 4Q Gen, chapter 34, verses 7, which we have verses 9 and verses 10. Comparing it to the Masoretic text, there are no extent differences. None. Whatever we have in Genesis 34 amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls agrees with the Masoretic text, and therefore these scholars believe that the entire text is equivalent, and there's a minimal amount of deviance. I'm trying to see what tradition are they getting all this midrash from. The Samaritan Pentateuch disagree with the Hebrew manuscript. Genesis 34 and 2, and when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her, same word, lechach, lay with her, shachav, and defiled her, anah. There is no textual variance among the compared manuscripts above and the translations that I went over with y'all that you can see for yourselves. Amongst the Samaritan Pentateuch, amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls, amongst the Septuagint. Now, if you want more information on how to do textual criticism of the Hebrew Bible, there's an excellent book by Emmanuel Tove, who's a foremost scholar of Hebrew textual criticism, and he has a book called Textual Criticism of the Hebrew Bible, edition 1, 2, and 3. Third edition is the one you want to get, and you'll see how this method is applied. So, through the textual data, comparative textual analysis of various manuscripts that represent the primary text, none of them have any deviance. They all are equivalent and agree. So therefore, there's no leeway there for some additional commentary to say, well, the Lord said for them to do this, and Shechem went and he took her by force, he overpowered her, he had his servants lay her down while he raped her. None of that is there. None of that is there in the primary text. I just gave you 3 additional witnesses to the Masoretic text. So in summary, the first victim was Shechem and Hamor, and it's Shechem. Shechem was the first victim because he was being deceived. Him and his father was being deceived. Dinah was a victim, yes, because her virginity was removed. According to Israelite culture, we do not intermarry with Gentiles who have covenant with other nations, other gods, other customs. They're not becoming one with Yah. So therefore, intermarriage with them, as we can see in the lives of David, right? All the other women, and Solomon more particularly, with these strange women took his heart away from Yah. And we can see during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, where they was trying to stop the intermarriage from happening because they knew from their history what would occur, especially a male, uncircumcised Gentile going into an Israelite woman. That is defilement because they don't know the proper marriage protocol and they will not be accepted unless they're circumcised. Then in that case, they will be allowed to become one people. That's the principle from that, right? But according to Torah, Torah is against dealing with Canaan's lineage because it's a cursed lineage. That's why when Yah sent the Israelites in there in the book of Exodus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, right? When he sent them in there, it was to eradicate all the Canaanites. There was a cursed seed. Now, why he told them to do that? It's because of an illicit union. Because of an illicit union, progeny and seeds were produced that had to be wiped out. the Rephaim. I have an upcoming lecture going into detail about that. I'm not going to spoil the beans right now, but I'm going to wait for you to get into that. And when we get into that, I'm gonna go deep. I'm gonna go heavy into it. Right? So we went into scene 7, which is a comparative textual analysis. Right? Here's the text up here on your screen that you should see in your sheet. None of them disagree with the Masoretic text. 3 other witnesses outside of Masoretic text, no deviance, no textual deviance, no textual variance. They all agree. Next, scene 8, Judah. Well, what about Judah? You know, Judah ain't got a Canaanite wife. Judah got a Canaanite wife, but Yah did not allow that marriage of Judah and his Canaanite wife. The seed produced from them, all the sons died, and the last son is unheard of, so we don't have any progeny from him. And then the woman died, and that's when he went and got Tamar. If you read into this real quick, right? Because again, that cursed seed cannot be sustained because you cannot intermarry, because then what will happen is the Hivites, who is a cursed seed, they will have inheritance rights to the land that Yah promised Abraham. So you cannot have a hybrid child because they will have inheritance rights to what Israel was able to take over from the land. That means that seed, that bloodline of Hivites cannot be wiped out. So that's why it was taboo. Genesis chapter 38, and at that time, Judah left his brothers and stayed with an Adulamite man named Hirah. There Judah saw the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua. Judah acquired her as a wife and slept with her. So there Judah saw a daughter of a Canaanite man. He got her as a wife, and he paid the buy price. He did the proper protocol. But in this case, it says at that time, Judah left his brothers. That means, remember, all that booty and spoil that they got, Judah left away from that. Interesting. That's interesting to know. He left away from that. Didn't even want the wives that they took from the Hivites. But he went and got another wife and slept with her. So he took her as a wife and he slept with her. He did the bride price protocol. He did the right process according to his culture. I'll say that. She became pregnant and had a son. Judah named him She became pregnant again and had another son, whom she named Onan. Then she had yet another son, whom she named Shelah. She gave birth to him in Keziv. Footnote from the NET Bible Commentary, verse 38, verse 2. Footnote, Hebrew, and he took her. The verb lachach, to take, is used idiomatically for getting a wife. Even in the following, even 4 chapters later. Lachach does not mean rape. Anah does not automatically mean rape. The context dictates if it's rape or defilement. And the word shechem just means to have sex with. Verse 6, Judah acquired a wife for his firstborn. Acquired a wife for his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was evil in Yah's sight, so Yah killed him. Of course he's evil because he's getting a lot of his customs and practices from the Canaanites. Then Judah said to Onan, sleep with your brother's wife and fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to her. Again, this is all priestly language, the Levite marriage, so that you may raise up a descendant for your brother. But Onan knew that the child would not be considered his. He's being selfish. So whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he wasted his emission on the ground so as to not give his brother a descendant. That means and a lot of y'all like this, your spiritual, what's the word I used before? I forgot the term I used before. But a lot of people want to commit to something, but don't want the responsibility. You commit to something because there's a reward, but you have selfish motives in the process. This is what he had. So he wanted the excitement, but he didn't want the responsibility. He wanted the passion, but he didn't want the obligation. Stop preaching about it. It's not that message. Okay. It's a message for somebody out there. Some of y'all doing it, right? So whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he wasted his emission on the ground so as not to give his brother a descendant. What he did was evil in Yah's sight, so Yah killed him too. 2 sons down. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, live as a widow in your father's house until Shelah, my son, grows up. For he thought, I don't want him to die like his brother. So Tamar went and lived in her father's house. Here, we have the assumption that we can safely make based on the language of the text that Judah knew the father of Tamar, which means they were more likely extended kinsfolk. After some time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died, and Judah was consoled. He left for Timnah to visit his sheep shearers along with his friend Hira the Adulamite. So now 2 sons dead, wife gone. You got 1 son left, Shelah, who was supposed to lay with Tamar and have a seed, right? So she removed her, verse 13, Tamar was told, look, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear sheep. So she removed her widow's clothes, covered herself with a veil. She wrapped herself and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the way to Timnah. She did this because she saw that she had not been given to Shelah as a wife. So she was not his son's wife yet. They didn't go through the process yet. He had to get older before that happened, and didn't have it, even though he had now grown up. So the process was initiated, but she was given the obligation to bear the seed from Judah, his line. Okay? When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute because she had covered her face. Prostitution was allowed at that time. It was permissive, right? He turned aside. And now, how do you know somebody's a prostitute? Clothing, attire. Well, today, it's kind of cross. Some women out there looking like prostitutes, but say, I'm not a prostitute. But they're on Instagram showing all the goods, half naked, sometimes or fully naked, right, with some blurring or so forth, so the image don't get removed, showing everything and saying, I'm not a prostitute. So nowadays, for a lot of the young men growing up, the righteous men, not the men out there that's deviants, but the righteous men growing up, young men growing up, they see this and they don't know the distinction between the two. In this culture, the women were veiled. But see, when y'all get married, the bride has a veil on. In Israelite culture, patriarchal Israelite culture, back then, that veil meant she was a prostitute. I'm not going to get into much of that, right? When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute because she had covered her face. He turned aside to her along the road and said, come, please, I want to sleep with you. He didn't realize it was Tamar. She said, what will you give me? They went over the process. I'm going to jump down to verse 18. What pledge should I give you? She replied, your seal, your cord, and the staff that's in your hand. Typically, when there's an arranged marriage, which she was requesting that to make the covenant legit, the man would actually give something to the woman. It could be the bride price, or it could be items, as we see in the situation with Abraham sending his servant to go get a wife for Isaac, who was Rebekah. The servant gave items like this to the father of Rebekah. Okay? So it says, so he gave them to her, then slept with her, and she became pregnant. She left immediately, removed her veil, and put on her widow's clothes. So you had clothes for women that were prostitutes, clothes for women that were widows, clothes for women that were married, and clothes for women that were single. So that way, if you go into the society, if everything's being done right, you can tell what woman is what by what she wears. Same thing with the men. You can tell what men were widows, because some men were widows as well, right? They didn't have a wife or they lost a wife. They would wear mourning clothes, where they would mourn. They would wear clothes to indicate that they just lost a wife, that they are a widow. You will see men that are married, they will wear particular clothes. Men that were single, they will wear particular clothes. You had men that was dignitaries, they will wear certain clothes. So that was one way, clothing and jewelry, and I shared this on the Patreon before, that was a distinction of who's who in society. Today, we have something very similar as well, right? In our society. However, some people fake it till they make it. And some people do it for the gram, so you don't know who's who anymore. When we get back into our culture, it sets everything straight, according to Yah's will. Verse 27, when it was time for her to give birth, there were twins in her womb. While she was giving birth, one child put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it on his hand and said, this one came out first. But he drew back his hand, and his brother came out before him. She said, how you have broken out of the womb. So his name was Perez. Afterwards, his brother came out, the one who had the scarlet on his hand, and he was named Zerah, right? So when Judah marries a Canaanite woman and produces seed, the woman dies, the 2 sons die, Shelah is not mentioned anymore. So the safe assumption is that he never had children. And if he's dead, he's not reckoned or counted in the bloodline. But with Tamar, through that lineage, we get King David and we get Yeshua. Because Tamar was within the extended kinsfolk amongst Judah. She was a Shemite. She was not a Canaanite. That's a safe assumption. All right? So the children that she had survived, she also survived. But the Canaanite hybrid marriages, the woman died, the sons died, and the last son, he was not even mentioned anymore. All right? So now, let's move on because we're coming to a close. All right? Coming to a close. I got 18 minutes. All right? So the scene with Judah, Genesis chapter 38, verses 2 to 19, and verses 27 to 30. Right? So here's the conclusion. When we understand rape in its broadest ancient Near Eastern sense, we have a better means of mapping and applying that knowledge today to incorporate appropriate change. What does that mean? I already talked about some of that. In those times, if a young woman who is not betrothed or not married decides to go lay with another man consensually, not rape, he didn't force her, put a strength upon her, violate her, ravage her. When that happens, that is considered rape in the ancient Near East. So if somebody took the ancient Near East understanding and they had a Shemitic language and learned English and they was putting a text together, they would probably use the translation as rape because they will assume that the Western society, who's the recipient of the translation, are going to assume that, oh, it's the same thing in our culture. No, it's not. No, it's not. We do have that in some instances, but not in this case. It was consensual. Why? Because we had the cohabitation, the falling in love, the speaking to our hearts, to go to his father, to go to her father, to offer a bride price, to want to marry her, not keep her as a concubine. All of those things we showcase that Shechem did not rape Dinah. Stop the cat, man. But when we understand that and we go back to today, how do we map that today? Well, we should extend the definition of rape, if we're an Israelite culture and community, to also if a man who's single lays with a woman who's single and he takes her virginity, right? Meaning that it was a consensual act, the sexual intercourse was consensual, but when he lays with her without going through the proper ceremony, right, that can be considered rape in our society. However, if he goes to make it right, it will be accepted. You see that? You have to go make it right. And that includes the bride price. We see that in Torah. And within this situation, he knew that in order for her to be his wife, there was a protocol. At least he understood that general protocol even in his culture. So he went to go make it right. So Shechem, if he would have, if everything like divvied out and Jacob's sons didn't do what they did, he would have did the right thing. So in our society, we should see that kind of act as rape, not because a man is forcing or doing violence to the woman or abusing her, but because he is laying with her with no intention to marry her. If that happens and it's found out, that man needs to pay the father the bride price, and that woman that he lay with, they're supposed to be together forever. No divorce. So that it's not considered rape, the man has to, again, if he lies with her, go through the process. And if he does not go through the process, then the law obligates him to give the bride price to the father, and he has to stay with that woman forever. That's not rape. The woman consented. So therefore, she also has to be mindful, because if she lets a man run game on her and she opens up her legs, I'm going to be with this man forever. He do it to her, I'm going to be with her forever. If we add that protocol in our community, it'll fix and set a lot of stuff straight. Verse 2, right? Even Gentiles have consequences for disobeying Torah. We see that as a principle in the text. Because Shechem did not do the appropriate thing, which was to be circumcised first. Number 2, to ask permission from the father and give the bride price. And then if agreed, go through the marriage protocol, and then he lays with her. That would have been the right thing to do. But because a Gentile's interacting with Hebrews, and he is doing something that is against the law amongst Hebrews, there is consequences for you. Now, if he wasn't doing this with the Israelites, would there be consequences? We will never know. But whenever a nation, according to this text, which represents the Israelite culture, interacts with us deceitfully, does the wrong protocol, does not understand Torah, there will be consequences. So if you see Gentiles getting away with stuff, you're thinking they're doing stuff to you, your family, your nation, Yah is going to require that blood from them. He will divvy out the retribution. Vengeance is mine, says Yah. Number 3, Black community example of community rape. Black church community and premarital sex. I'm going to give you this real quick. So in the Black community, back in the 50s, 40s, 60s, right? When they tried to keep things modest and whole, right? And even, no, not just then, but even up until today, right? And the very zealous, I would say conservative religious circles in the Black community regarding the Black church, if one believer and another believer has children and they go have sex together, that is shameful and taboo amongst Christians. And the reason why I put up the 40s, 50s, and 60s is they took it much more serious than they do today. But that would be an example of rape. That same act would be distasteful, disgusting, and repugnant to the Black church and the Black community. And I've seen it happen with my own eyes. I've been to churches where you have maybe a 19-year-old guy, 18-year-old girl lied together, had sex. It was found out. They were either excommunicated, they were shamed, they were put down, not because he raped her, but because they whipped together with one another with no intention of getting married. They were playing the whore in the church's house, in the Black community, the woman and the man making whores of the daughters of Zion, and the woman playing a whore in her father's house. So even in our society, African Americans, Black culture, who's intertwined with the Black church, when there's a very strict regulation in regards to premarital sex, that was something that was looked down upon, frowned upon, and a taboo in the Black community. That is how we can have an example today. If you want to see a real life example, those of you who've been growing up in what I would call ortho conservative or ultra conservative Black Christian homes, if 2 kids, and I say kids, when I say kids, I mean young, like 19, 20, 21, 17, whatever, laid together, it is very shameful. So that is the closest example that I can use today to map to what it would have looked like with Shechem, Hamor, Dinah, Jacob, and his brothers. Verse 4, reinstituting shame and responsibility for illicit premarital sex in our community. Let's value virginity again. LVVA. Let's value virginity again. We need to reinstitute shame. If you go through the process of laying with a woman with no intention of being with her, then you are marked. There's a tag on you. You are marked by the community. There's no fellowship with you. Why? Because you have the potential to continue to promulgate that act within the community and keep making whores out of the daughters of Zion. It's a shame. Girls who give up their virginity because they like a man going against the protocol, shame. Shame. Until you make it right. See, the good thing is about Torah is you have the stigma only as long as either you make it right or don't make it right. If you make it right, the stigma comes off of you. Come on in. If you don't make it right, it continues to stay on you. Why? We have to discommunicate you from the fellowship. Why do we have to do that? Because you're going to perpetuate this behavior amongst others in the community. And the text says you got to put the evil away. Even in the New Testament, when Paul was talking about the man that took his father's wife and lay with her, he said, put him away, kick him out, let Satan have him. So if we institute shame and responsibility for illicit premarital sex in our community, we will have a different community. We won't have single parent households no more. We won't have no bastard children no more. We won't have these things. We won't have STDs because the virgins, when they lay together, they got to stay together. We can remove so many societal ills if we reinstitute this appropriately. We must have a Beit Din or a council first within our community in order for us to reinstitute these things. See, God's coming. The king is on his way, but are we ready? No, because we can't map the principles of the past to change and reform our current condition now. Until we do that, we are not ready for the king. That's my conclusion. That's the end of the lecture, but I'm going to give you a quick bonus before we head on out. I'm going to give you the layout, and I got 10 minutes to do it, of the pre-exilic Israelite marriage protocol. This is something that we can institute today to make things right. Make it right. Step 1, the couple interact and develop love for one another, or an arranged marriage attempt is made between compatible candidates. Between those who grew up together in a community, our responsibility, those who are adults now, we are to create a community for our children. Those children need to interact with other children within that community who have the same shared values, customs, and ethics and morals together. And they grow up amongst each other, which means the reputation of each child is known by the community and by the opposite sex. There's no secrets, nothing's hidden. The fame and reputation of those individuals is known within the community. And you grow up knowing that other person. So in the beginning, that's what happens. They interact, the couple has love for each other on arranged marriages made by individuals within the same community. We see that in Jeremiah chapter 29. It says, have your daughters and your sons marry together. Have them increase and do not decrease. It didn't say take them from outside the community. Do it within the community. And we're in the state of Babylon today. So that letter that he wrote to the exiles in Babylon applies to us today. Step 2. The groom-to-be and his family approached the bride-to-be's father or eldest male. The father is absent, and her family to request to marry the bride-to-be. That is known as a letter of intent. So, like you see with Shechem told his dad, they go and approach Jacob and his brothers and say, "Hey, my son Shechem wants your daughter Dinah." Right? The request is made, the intent is shared, and today you can create a letter of intent to deliver to that opposing family. 3, bride-to-be's family researches and evaluates the potential groom's candidacy. So, okay, you want to marry our daughter? We need to evaluate and research first to see if your son is a viable, plausible candidate. Does she even want your son? Do we even want you as part of our family? Because in ancient times, the families are joined together. Today we say in-laws, right? But you have to check the compatibility between families before you marry any children together. That's important. We don't do that no more. Once approved, they ask the bride-to-be if she wants to proceed. We find that in the situation with Rebecca. Abraham's servants talking to her father and her brothers. Then they go to her and say, "Do you want to go with him?" And then she consents, yes. The woman always has the right to consent. If you are removing this within our communities, because you're calling yourself Israelites, then you're not understanding the culture. Women are not property. They may be seen as property in translations only because the man has the obligation and responsibility to take care of everything that's in his custody, including the woman and the children and the property and the house. He's the head of household. So everything under his care and custody, he's obligated to provide for, to protect, and to produce. Every household should be providing, the male should be providing, protecting, and producing. Phase 5. If she affirms, then the bride price is set by the father or the community. If she's not a virgin, then the bride price is reduced. So if your daughter is a virgin, you're giving her away, you get the full bride price. If she's not, there's a reduced bride price, typically 50%. The bride price is there because now you are promising the father that you have the wherewithal and the funds to take care of his daughter, and that you're providing this as compensation in the absence of his daughter from his household, or if there's a divorce, that's a sum of money that you set aside for her to have to take care of herself, because as a man, you're supposed to provide. And you provide in advance so that way this funding is there for that woman if you divorce her so she can take care of herself. Right? Or if she lives with her father, that's just extra money for her. Phase 6. The groom-to-be pays the dowry, the bride price, and then goes to prepare himself and an abode for the bride-to-be. At this point, the couple is seen as married. Unofficially, but publicly married. At this point, if that woman sleeps with another man, then she violates that contract, according to what we see in Deuteronomy chapter 22. Right? So the man has to get his mind, body, soul, mental health, physical health, right? He has to get his emotional health. He has to get himself in order. Because when he comes back to take that woman, the father is going to evaluate him and say, "Wait, you're not ready for it yet. Take some more time." That's what happened with Laban and Jacob. Jacob wanted one daughter, but he was tricked by Laban, and Laban said, "Well, you got to work another 7 years to get this daughter." You still have to prove some stuff to me that you can have her instead of just her. That I tricked you with. It's kind of crazy, but that's the case. So the man has to have a home already. He can't be living at mama's house. He can't be trying to live with the woman and her father. He has to prove to the father that he can take care of her and any children they produce. 7, when groom-to-be is ready, he requests a ceremony from the father. Okay, father, you examine me. You say I got a house. I got my mind right. I'm ready for your daughter. Can you please do the ceremony? The father, if he agrees, okay, cool. Let's do the ceremony, right? The father or eldest male of the bride-to-be sets the date and pays for the ceremony and celebration. So the father of the bride, he funds everything. So the marriage can't be had until he should have some money. If he doesn't have a lot of money, whatever he has is how he does the ceremony. Ceremony doesn't have to be grand, and it doesn't have to be bougie or whatever. It could be very small. It could be within his own house. But he has to provide for that. And then there's a celebration that happens after, which we go through, that he also has to fund himself. So the father has to take his responsibility. Now he's giving his daughter away, has to put some money out to make sure there's a ceremony and make sure there's a celebration after what we're about to get into. Verse 9, the ceremony commences and completes, right? They brought together, things are said, things are exchanged, right? They're made official in the eyes of the public, of the society. 10 says, after the ceremony of the groom and the bride go to private quarters. Either they go back to his abode or private quarters near where they're at. Typically it's within the venue or near the venue, right? Some private quarters are made where they do their thing, and sheets are given that they have to have intercourse upon. And the hymen, when it's broken from the woman as a virgin, it bleeds, proof of her virginity. Therefore, everything has been done righteously, right? So they go and they do their thing, right? In private quarters, right? Once they do their thing, the groom and bride are unclean until the following evening. That means they stay in those quarters, right? After they do their thing, they stay in those quarters until the next evening. And then after the next evening, now they have a celebration. Once the uncleanness is cured, there is a celebration, right? Last, after the groom takes the bride-to-be to his abode, where he now becomes the Baal, the overseer, the head of household, and she's under his care, they live happily ever after. So what I'm saying is, this is what the marriage protocol should be. When we look into Torah or the rest of the Tanakh, the Ketuvim, the writings or whatever, even the Nevi'im, when they talk about Yah wedding Israel, this is what the process should be. This can only be derived from reading the entire Tanakh. You can come up with all of these details by just reading Tanakh. And then you get more information if you go into the Berit Kadashim. The Berit Kadashah, you'll get more information as well, because it also starts filling those elements in as well. So the entire text that we call the Bible has all these steps in it. And when you put them together, you're able to reconstruct the pre-exilic Israelite marriage protocol. We're all about pre-exilic culture. So if we reinstitute this back into our community amongst ourselves, we will set things right. Marriages today are broken. The divorce rate in the Black community is exponentially high. Why? Because we're not going back to our ancestral protocol, ethics, tradition, customs. We're not doing any of it. And what you see happen in Christianity or how marriages today happens, that does not look nothing like this. And that form, because it's not our culture, is what decimates and devastates us as a community. We must restore our pre-exilic ways and reinstitute them in our community to bind the broken families, bind the broken households, put obligations on people, liabilities on people, shame on people. We must get them back together to agree and live amongst ourselves and do things the righteous way so Yah can bless us as a people. Until we do that, we are not ready for him to come. Because when he comes, he wants to see a bride that is unspotted and unblemished. He wants to see a virgin. We got to make this thing tight. Because the king's coming to sup with us and to enter in physically in that covenant. So let's make our households right again. Let's reinstitute the proper marriage protocols and fix our broken community. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right, so with that, I'm going to show you some bibliography if you want to do some additional reading on what we discussed on today. Here's some 9 sources you can get. One of them we use in the beginning, part 1, called Enoch, Jubilees, and Jasher, banned from the Bible. That's this one right here. The second one is the Cultural Background Study Bible, NIV version right here. The third one is Inventing God's Law, How the Covenant Code, the Bible Used and Revised the Laws of Hammurabi, right here by David P. Wright. Women in the Ancient Near East by Martin Stoll, right here. The other one is the other one is, do I have Hidden Riches? Other one is Hidden Riches right here by Christopher B. Hayes. Another one here is Women in the Ancient Near East, but this one is by Mark W. Kavalas. And then we get into the lexicons that we use. The first one was the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament. The other one is the Enhanced Brown Driver Briggs lexicon. The other one is the Dictionary of Classical Hebrew lexicon. The other one is the Theological Lexicon of the Old Testament. And the other one is the Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament. The last one, there's one lexicon I did forget, which is extremely valuable to this when going into the Septuagint to verify the things that we're discussing. This one is called a Greek English lexicon of the Septuagint by T. Moroka. All right? A Greek English lexicon. You'll see that on a PDF sheet that I gave you. That one should be in everybody's hand because you should always compare the Masoretic text with other primary Tanakh texts. The Septuagint is one of them. Okay? All right, with that being said, we are all done with this session. Thank you so much for everyone sitting in and listening to this. I'm glad I got able to finish it on time. I'm going to go ahead and see the numbers real quick, and then I'm closing out. All right. So let me see. All right, thank you for the participation, everybody. And again, hopefully you enjoyed this. You know, I took less than a week to put everything together, rushing everything together. I'm glad that it came out coherent, and I'm glad that you all believe that you got your money's worth, right? So I'm glad you appreciate it. Now, last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna segue into this last thing real quick, and then we're all done after this. The last thing I want to show y'all, and then we're gonna close out. Okay, hold on 1 second. All right. So the first thing I'm going to say is there will be an edited version of this that's available on Patreon. Please sign up to www.patreon.com/divine prospect. And that way you'll get other lectures like this. Some of them won't be available for anybody to purchase. It will only be for patrons on our Patreon. But if you want to get the official footage, which I'm recording in a separate camera, along with the PDF and the PDF and the PowerPoint that you're looking at, so that you can go back to it and get everything you might have missed, right? Sign up for the Patreon, and at the $20 tier, you'll be able to get access to our Death to Dogma series lectures, which this is one of. And then the last thing I want to show y'all, let me just get out of this. The last thing I want to show y'all is this right here. All right, you should be able to see it on your screen right now. This is the official flyer for our upcoming classes. So all the methodology, the steps, the sources, everything that I did in this lecture, we will do it in a more formalized, structured way, right, in our classes, right? We're going to do the comparative cultural analysis, and textual analysis, contextual analysis, linguistic and lexical analysis. We'll be using archaeology, ancient Near Eastern sources and studies, etc. We're going to use all of those tools and resources with a methodology that you've seen live its way out here, and we're going to approach every piece of scripture this way. I'm going to teach this method to you so you can decipher and decode any text of scripture. Nothing will be hidden from you. Nothing you won't be able to understand. You don't need no commentary assistance. at all. You don't need no traditions. You don't need any of that. The method we give you is going to be able to derive and understand it objectively the same way we did for this particular lecture. Okay? So this class is going to teach you that. You have to sign up to the Patreon. It's at the $50 tier because we give you all the books that you need, the curriculum, the link for the courses. You get the replays. You get everything, right? This is a college level course that typically will be worth, I think it was like $5,000. Had it evaluated to be about $5,000, and I'm charging 4 classes every month for $50, when I should be charging $300 to $500 a month, and for a whole semester should be like $1,800. I was told $2,000, something like that. I was told. But I'm giving it to you for $50 because I want this to be common amongst our community. Because if we learn this method, we'll get back to culture, community, and autonomy. We'll be self-governance over all of our affairs because we can take a study like this and find a way to map it and apply it in real life. And that is what I want to give to the community. That's what I've been charged to do, and that's what I want to give. The funding that you guys provide, you get access to everything else on Patreon, plus it pays for the course, and it gives us additional R&D funds so we can bring more things like this to the community. Because KHM is an umbrella organization, and we help hundreds of people every year. And that can only be done through the financing from you guys. All right. So salvation is free, but ministry costs. That's just the nature of what things are. But I thank you all for investing. Hopefully you got an immediate return on your investment. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoy. All right. And like always, what we say, peace and shalom, family. Shalom and shalom.